good morning or good day. I'm delighted to welcome you to today's webinar, Unlocking the Power of Open Data for Soil Health. This will be a great webinar with some fantastic speakers. We've got Tom Hengler here and Nishani Wheeler. I'll introduce them properly a little bit later. But thank you for joining us today. I think we've had 149 of you registered. This is fantastic, and I look very much forward to your reflections and your questions later. It's my pleasure to chair this session today. My name is Katrin Hochberg, and I work for the Soil Association. We're a UK-based not-for-profit. We support sustainable food and farming, and on the farming and land use side, we cover everything across the group, from organic certification to sustainability measurements on farm, to on-farm training events. We lead quite a long-standing farm-led research program. We also support a number of innovation projects, and the sort of most significant one is AI for soil health. And this is why we're involved in this great webinar series. This is a series, the first one of 4, and we're delighted really to kick off with this subject. Before I introduce this whole session properly, just a little bit of housekeeping. We are recording, and I really hope you come back and rewatch some of this. And very much hoping that you will also share it with colleagues and others who will be interested. We've got our colleague Maddie here, who's prepared a lot of the session, who can also help on some of the technical issues. So if you've got any problems, just use your Q&A. Maddie, if you could move on to the agenda. Thank you. So we're sort of halfway through some of the introductions, and the main bit really of today's webinar will be presentations from OpenGeoHub. So between Tom and Ish, we've still got half an hour. And then we'll have 20 minutes really from you, question and answers, really hearing back from your thoughts after the presentations. And then we're planning another 20 minutes for wider reflection, particularly sort of how sort of data can be used more widely. And we'll finish with some conclusions. So maybe just a little bit of introduction really on just the project itself. So the AI for Soil Health project is a very significant project. It's funded by the EU, but it's got 28 partners. You can see them all there on screen. European partners of academics, businesses, not-for-profits, and including some UK partners. This is really all about, as it says in their name, AI for Soil Health. This is really an initiative that aims to transform how soil health is monitored and how we manage soil health across Europe using artificial intelligence. There's sort of 3 key objectives, and I won't go into detail because Tom and Ish will sort of cover this much better. One is, to actually build the digital infrastructure that we need. The second one is to empower farmers and land managers to actually provide tools to make it easier for farmers to understand their soil health, but also be able to monitor the impact of the changes they're making with their practices. And the third one is really supporting policy and innovation to actually help policymakers target their interventions and be able to measure the impact of the interventions. So before we sort of move on to a bit more detail on the sort of speakers and the presentations, we want to hear a little bit from you actually. And I hope most of you are familiar with Menti. If you can just quickly sort of scan the QR code, I'll give you a minute or two to sort of join us, because we've got some questions for you so that we make sure that the presentation sort of very much responds really to what you're interested in and who you are. So if we're assuming that most of you are hopefully in, we'll move on to the first question. So the first thing we want to know is really, what's your expertise? And we'll give you a minute or so to just quickly click. And if most of you are in, hopefully we'll see the results live. We'll just wait a moment. Excellent. Oh. Okay, so far good spread. That's really helpful to see. Good. We'll move on to the next one. Thank you. That is actually really helpful, especially for our speakers. So your main motivation to join this discussion, I mean, just in a word or, just a few words, just sort of type it in. This will be really helpful as well, especially for our Q&A later. That's a nice one. Stay current. Issue, you and I and Josiah, we were in a really interesting groundswell discussion last week when we was a UK Regen Ag event, and I think 150 people there as well in a field, and I think a lot of the motivation seemed to be people just wanting to make sure they're up to date with what's happening in the latest thinking, learn as much as possible. Great, lots of learning, connect a network of people. Yeah. Implementation of AI in the architect sector. Yeah. Collaboration. There's a lot of, making sure you're up to date. And I think that is a very good motivation to be here today. Awareness, open source data availability. I like the curiosity. That's a good one. Yeah. Find out other people's thoughts and insight. Yeah, I think it will be really interesting. And I think we're really keen to sort of hear your reflections later as well, especially for the sort of second session, your thoughts and insights. Yeah, OS data sets. Excellent. See what my kids will have to deal with. Interesting. Yeah. Great. Well, that is really helpful. Keep them coming, actually. Just wait another half a minute, see what else is coming. Maddie, if you just scroll down a bit more, see what else is coming through here. So there's quite a theme here, really, around learning, wanting to stay up to date, connecting with others, thoughts and insights on open data. Yeah, using AI to cut resource and time. Impact of AI on soil health, knowledge and change impact. Well, I would hope we would definitely cover that today. Knowledge learning. Great. Okay, that is really, really helpful. Thank you. We'll move on to, I think there's only one more, and then you can sort of relax and sit back. This is just asking you how much you already know about a soil health data cube. And just to let you know, we will be asking you the same question at the end of the session to see if that has changed. But again, it will really help our speakers to sort of pitch the next bit. Okay. So most of you, not much of understanding and some very good understanding. Good, that's helpful. We'll compare to a picture at the end of the session. Great. Okay, well, that is really, really helpful. Thank you for that. We are now moving on. The next bit will be as a half-an-hour presentation and just a very brief introduction, and Tom and Ish will sort of add to this. You're both co-founders of OpenGeoHub, and really in that AI for Soil Health project, you're leading on the production of the harmonized EU-wide soil monitoring tools and services. Ish, you are the research coordinator and responsible for business development and use of open data sets. You're a specialist in agricultural, land and water restoration, natural resource monitoring, soil carbon methodologies, and probably a whole other range. You can sort of add to your introduction. You did a much better job introducing yourself last week as well. Tom, you're the technical director and the vice chair of the foundation. Got more than 20 years of experience as an environmental modeler, data scientist, and spatial analyst. That is really a fantastic set of experience between the two of you. And Tom, you're kicking off, I think, with just probably 15, 20 minutes. You've got some slides and you'll give us a demo, and then Ish, you'll sort of move into some very good questions that I think you'll answer yourself, maybe with help of the audience as well. So half an hour of these two presentations, and I'm very much looking forward to it. Thank you, everyone. Over to you, Tom.
Tom, you're still muted.
Thank you, Katrin. Do you see my slides? Can you just confirm?
Yes, it's working really well.
All right.
We've got the first one. Thank you.
So yes, I'm a director at OpenGeoHub, and I also lead in the area for soil health. I lead the work package 5. I want to talk a bit about the Soil Health Data Cube just to introduce it a bit. And it is based on Earth observation, so satellite images primarily. I do feel that it's a good moment to also explain a bit what is a data cube, and then I will show some examples of how this Soil Health Data Cube could be used in real life applications. And I'm hoping to do a little demo, but let's see how it works. And this is a project funded by Horizon Europe, and also UK part is funded by UK Research and Innovation. So as many of you are probably aware, the European Space Agency and European Union, they have this program to increase number of satellites primarily for Earth observation. And we are now in 2025 here, but there will be more and more actually satellites. It's almost exponential growth of data. And good news is that European Union and European Space Agency, they're following a policy of open data. So many of these new missions, they will be producing open data. And that means there's sky's the limit. We can all plug in and start using it. Also, the interest of Earth observation is quite diverse, but you see the soil properties, they pop up here, crop health. So there's a lot of interest in monitoring the land and monitoring agricultural production and food security, etc. There's also quite some hyperspectral missions coming up listed here. So it's an exciting time. There's also LSTM, land surface temperature monitoring, with 5 bands, thermal bands that will allow actually to see temperature, fine grain temperature differences of objects. I was just at the Living Planet Symposium in Vienna last week, which is a fantastic event, almost 8,000 people. And Josef Aschbacher, director of ESA, he had this slide where he shows that actually the Earth observation, it is a very small investment for a European citizen. It's only about 0.06% of GDP. But it has a potential huge gains, and we invest still much less than US from their GDP. I think they're 0.26, which is almost 4 times more. So it's a low investment, but it has actually a lot of potential huge gains. And in recent years, there's been a couple of Earth observation analysis ready products being released for soil health data monitoring. And I list now here only 2. I don't want to insult everyone. I didn't have space on my slides. But these are 2 that I'm aware of. And one is produced by the German Space Agency called Soil Suite. And the second one is part of the AI for Soil Health that we produce here at OpenGeoHub mainly. And this one is based on Landsat. This one is based on Sentinel. And this is the example of a German Space Agency Soil Suite. You can actually now, it's the first time ever you could see what is the color of soil. So this is the color of soil based on the Sentinel-2 primarily images, and you can see, you can zoom in, it's a 20-meter resolution. So you can see inside the farm, you can see the different gradients in reflectances. And the soil, bare soil spectra, unfortunately, you cannot get images of the whole Europe. It's only about, I think, maybe 30%, maybe 40% of pixels, because for the bare soil spectra, you have to be patient. You have to see when the soil is really exposed, which can be only a little window in the time. And so there's basically very little vegetation. And then you can extract this soil spectral reflectance. Otherwise, you get a vegetation reflectance. There's also increasing number of commercial contributors, which are producing up to half-meter resolution data. But these are commercial, so that's something a farmer will have to purchase. And one of them is Planet. I think it's a world-leading producer of agricultural Earth observation data. And they are aiming at the daily revisit, so you could get almost every day. You could get images of your field. Satellogic also, you can order historic images if you want to see what happened with your farm, let's say last 10 years or more. And also, you usually the prices per square kilometer and the prices are kind of acceptable. If you look at Satellogic, it's let's say from $4 to $25 per square kilometer. So the prices are kind of acceptable. Pixel also has now a multispectral system, which is basically 250 bands. It's also very exciting. With 250 bands, you can really see fine differences between materials. So it's ideal for mineralogical applications. And also for you can detect different types of vegetation. Also, very good news is that there's more and more sharing of groups, European projects and pan-European projects. So I'm just showing some examples of a project where people share groundwater measurements. So that's on an hourly base. So these red dots. Then there's the International Soil Moisture Monitoring Network. These are also some soil sensors that people can voluntarily, so citizen science-based, people share data. So there's also more in situ data. It also can be very fine resolution. This is, I think, every minute there's a reading through International Soil Monitoring Network. They have a lot of stations also contributed by different agencies, and you see it is spread around Europe. So you can get the soil moisture data on a very fine resolution. And of course, our work is based on Lucas Soil, which is a European Commission initiative program. There's the Lucas and there's a Lucas Soil. And they made also in 2025. Now it's like a tree. They had a tree service, the 2009, 2015, 2018. They did also 2022. Unfortunately, we don't have access to this data yet. And now the question is, the next one should be 2025, but the question, how is it going to be implemented? But it is happening also. This Lucas service produced almost, I think, over 200,000 samples so far. So it's a really significant amount of data. Okay, so using this Lucas data and national data, we created this Soil Health Data Cube, and it is publicly available. It's open data. And what we're doing with this webinar, we're trying to promote it so that you see, okay, what is it? How do I use it? Because it is complex. And also it's very important to understand what is a data cube. So it is kind of, or let's say, more simple terms, a data cube is an organized multi-array data. It's as analysis ready as possible. So it's not just a plain kind of a drop of a large number of images, but it is nicely organized and stacked to be perfectly aligned. So it creates this visual. We represent it as a cube, like a Rubicon cube, when the children play. So, and you see, usually we talk about 3 dimensions. So we have a space dimension, so we have time dimension. But there's also the 4 dimension, which is the depth. And we don't call it a 4-dimensional because that's a science fiction. We call it a 3D plus time. So it's a 3D plus time data cube. And that's what we created for Europe. And some important technical parameters of a data cube is for example, spatial resolution, temporal duration, temporal coverage, granularity, temporal granularity. Is it bi-monthly, annual, long-term, etc. And then when you organize in a data cube, it actually works as a geospatial database. So you can do queries, you can do a point query. You can then also aggregate the data. You can visualize it. So you can do a lot of things. And at the moment, the solution we use to share the data is called STAC, Spatial Temporal Access Catalog. And it is available on the stack.ecodatacube.eu. And there you can explore this data. And then all the data is cloud optimized. And that implies that you don't really have to download now. At the moment, there's like 30 terabytes of data. But so you don't have to download the data. You can also access it in what is called a cloud optimized way. It means that you can query at point locations or polygon locations, and you can develop code applications without ever actually downloading whole of the data. So Soil Data Cube for EU. So we have the data cube is, let's say, large multi-array organized data. And now I talk about 30 terabytes. So, but what is a Soil Health Data Cube? So obviously, soil health data cube is a data cube that has information about soil health indicators and potentially information about soil health index and aggregate measures of soil health. And we produce this as a part of the AI for Soil Health project. It's one of the key outputs. Other outputs will be the mobile phone app, AI for Soil Health mobile phone app. This is coming in September and November. We'll have a first test version. And then this mobile phone app will be the central place to access this soil health data cube. And also we will then provide functionality for really plain users to produce a soil health card. So to ask, what is the soil health index of my soil, of my farm? How do I improve my soil health index, etc. So that's kind of in a nutshell. And we've been building this soil health data cube component by component, and just to show you everything we build, we document and we put it in a peer review. So this is one publication accepted for publication, which will appear soon in the literature, and shows how we produce the soil carbon density through time. So something we have fully documented. We show also this all the training points we used, and also all the harmonization of data. Everything is explained. And then we make that data available through the Soil Health Data Cube. At the moment, we have a front end and the ecodatacube.eu. This is the front end, and so you can if you read the documentation, you understand how the data is prepared. And then if you say, okay, I just want to use it, then you go to ecodatacube.eu, and this is our universal platform to access this data. At the moment, we have a primary soil properties and soil types. We have vegetation indices, we have a tillage index, bi-monthly, bare soil fractions, and all of this produced for the last 25 years. Most of the things are based on the Landsat, because we have our own copy of Landsat archive, and we've been running processing of this data. We do also have the land cover and the Eurocrops, and we have the field boundaries. So you can also see what are the crop types around you. And this is an example of soil carbon density. As I said, it's a 3D plus time. So you can scroll. At the moment, we have a 2-year periods of soil carbon density. And if you scroll through time, you can see how the carbon gradually changes. Carbon doesn't change so much. Many soil properties don't change, year to year. It takes sometimes decades until they change. But you can see in some smaller places, you can see some changes. And then also bi-monthly vegetation indices. And if you query any point, you can get in real time, it will carry the values. And you can see that it's kind of like a health of ecosystem. You see there's some oscillations, you have some stability periods. And then you can see, in this case here, there's a little decrease in NDVI here. So there's from the 2015, we see that something's happening. And this decrease in NDVI could lead also to loss in soil carbon. And so we publish all these trends. So you can see the trend maps, and I'm looking at that farm that I just showed, where we see that there seems to be a change in NDVI. And then I can switch from looking at this. So this reddish color, it means negative. So there's a loss in NDVI. So now I can look in historical images, 30 centimeter, and I can see when this change happened. As you can see here on this example, you can see the 30 centimeter resolution images and how this farm changed. And it seems that this farm used to be a grassland as a primary land use, and they switched to some kind of cropping system, and that have resulted in a loss of soil carbon. That's an example in Spain. We also see there's some forest area, and we can see that there's been a loss of trees, and this loss of trees can also result in some negative index. And then it's interesting to see whether that negative loss of the tree cover resulted in a loss of changes in soil properties. So this is more or less the soil health data cube. I'm just showing you some very rough examples. I could also switch to the real app. So if I now show you here, I zoom in to an area, you can see in this data cube. Usually we start looking at the land cover We have a 10-meter resolution land cover dataset now for Europe. There's just a newer version coming up, and you can see I can switch to different switch to different layers. So let's see the trend layer. I can look at the trend in the NDVI or NWI, the water index, or I can look at the bare fraction index. Let me just look at the NDVI. So I can see the areas where, and they can be next to each other, as you can see. Next to each other, we can have gains. We can have gains in the green areas where there's a gains in NDVI, and we can also have places where there's a loss. So let's say this little area here, and there seems to be a loss in the NDVI. And so that's very interesting to see why this happened. So we will probably have to go open the NDVI bi-monthly and then look at what really happened here with the NDVI and where it happened. So that's this one. So you see there's a lot of data now here. So if a query that takes a bit of time, we can see that in some years something happened with NDVI and it started going downhill. And that's interesting to see which year it happened and what is the reason. I switch back to my slides. So we have a lot of things now available. You can watch these trends for whole Europe, 30 terabytes of data. In November, we are going to add even more functionality, and we're going to launch a new version where you will also be able to estimate what is my soil health index. And also per farm, you will be able to say what is my soil carbon stock, how much soil carbon I increased or lost in the last 25 years. And people already asking me on LinkedIn, they were asking, hey, can you also project this soil carbon under the climate change scenarios? And I said, yeah, we're working on it. And say, can you please have it before Eva Ivic, from my colleague from the European Environmental Agency, already asking, can you have it? We need it in 2026, so we would like to add it. So yeah, there are lots of things happening. So please come if you're interested in European Commission projects on soils. Come to Soil Mission Week, 5th to 6th of November in Aarhus in Denmark, where we're going to launch the mobile for Soil Health mobile phone app, and we will have an upgraded version of this data. And with this thing, I stop. Catherine, I stop sharing my screen.
Thanks, Tom, for keeping the time. Really fascinating and great to see that demo. We'll move on to, just briefly before we move on to it, actually, please add your questions to Q&A so we have them ready when we're moving on to that in 10 minutes. It's over to you. You're focusing more on the application and bigger picture, correct?
Yes, feelings, governance, and how we can get this system into action. Let me just share my screen. I think there's a link in the chat already for everyone. Let me go here, share this one. Hopefully you've seen it. Let me try this one. Do we start like so? Yep. All right. Everyone, please, this works a lot better if you participate. It's active. Otherwise, I'm just slamming you with information, basically. So the reason I'm asking you about what your level of trust in AI for environmental decision making is that often when we discuss these topics, this is one of the touchy points where a landholder will feel or fear or be concerned about loss of control, right? Loss of autonomy, loss of self-determination. So I always try and ask this at the beginning. And okay, we're split down the middle. I think it's a wise point to be perfectly honest. It's certainly coming, but we now have a small chance to determine how it could be deployed in Europe, at least. So let me go next one. Right. So please, given what you just saw Tom present, what do you think the biggest benefit of open soil data could be? Don't worry about uncertainty about who controls what the implications are. What could help? Oh, first Monday of the month, if you can hear the alarm, it's a practice alarm. You don't have to leave. Okay, so yes, helping farmers, quick access, transparency. Yeah. Yeah, so this is, oh, hydrology. Someone likes water. Yes, it's important for water. All right. Nice. Accounting. All right. Access and data. Knowledge. Oh, nice. Yeah, nice. Okay. Access, knowledge, data. So that fits very nicely in our remit, at least, as OpenGeoHub, of why we do this kind of work. All right, 4 people left. Quick, if you can get it in. I want to switch to the next one because we've only got 10 minutes on this one. All right, quick, quick, quick. Go. Ooh, transparency. One of my favorites. Okay, all right, good, good. Forgive me, I'm going to the next one. And 1 participant, go. Okay. What data should never be made open, in your opinion? About land, please. This is important for us because we do have space where some information can be kept back and restricted on a need-to-know basis, let's say. And other information, yeah, it's should be made open. So for instance, the long-term management, say how often that piece of land has been tilled, is now, let's say, visible, right? The long-term trends of how how productive the land is in terms of biomass production, these are now visible, right? So there's a huge amount of information that's there. And I'm guessing, yeah, personal data, personal ownership, yeah. I am happy that these are coming up because these are the things that are often cited as being the nervous points of it, right? Very interesting. I want the information, but then I also want to know how I'm going to be exposed and to whom and in which way, and essentially who has my back, if that makes sense from a landholder point of view. Land is a common good. Yeah, there's the argument. Okay, next. All right. Should AI for soil health, so this data cube you've seen, etc., influence EU subsidies? This may be a spicy question, let's say. It's always quite divided. And I guess if you're in the UK, I would suggest your equivalent subsidy. What is your equivalent subsidy system, Catherine or Hosea? Does that have a name?
It's different in different devolved nations.
Sorry?
It's different in different devolved nations. So in England, we've got a sustainable farming incentive, for example.
Okay.
Or in Wales, we've got a sustainable farming scheme, but they're all designed in a slightly different way.
Okay. Well, I guess given on your jurisdiction, please try and answer generally. Because this is something we get asked from the policy side, right? Can you just give us a 2-color map? Good, bad. And we get nervous and uncomfortable when that is asked. But it is there is a desire for being able to quickly act on policy and to be able to move forward in this sector. So, okay, please, 3 people left. We're going to have to jump to the next one. Thoughts going back up. You guys are thinking about it, aren't you? You are thinking about it. If accurate, definitely. Yeah, so no system is perfectly accurate. Generally, in regards to this, and also in line with the AI Act, it is that there needs to be a usable method of addressing issues, right, in a timely manner. Okay, would you be willing, if you have land, or hypothetically, if you had land, to share data from your land? So the models that we show you can see them, and that the output would still be open and free to use. Yes, but these models get better the more data we feed them. So this question is about the point observations on your land. How do you feel about those, and at what level would you let them into the system? Yes. Okay, anonymized. Yeah, most. And benefits the public is quite a lot. That's interesting. we do often get groups that will say they will trust other farmers to see the data, but that they're not interested in any policy, any governance, anyone in authority seeing that information. So this reflects a little bit. I think we compare this to the earlier who we have in the audience slides, but we'll do that later on. Okay, who should have final control over the AI-generated soil health indicators? And I'm thinking of three groups here. Scientists, the people who make these things, like us. Farmers, whose location, where the information come from, on whose business and livelihoods the outcomes are impacting, let's be honest. Or policymakers, the ones who have the power to compel behavior, to whether it's a carrot or a stick. Preferably carrots are better. All three. Okay, that's going to be fun to get them to agree. I didn't think of all three. All right, well, that one's above my pay grade, but I'm definitely taking it back and we'll report back that all three are important. Okay, scientists, but nothing about policymakers by themselves. So this is probably quite an interesting element as well. Thank you for your trust. The one thing I can say from this slide. All right, one more. No, I like the all three though. That is good. We do have to move forward. Okay. Last question. In your opinion, how many in percent from the 9 million farmers, forestry, landholder people use satellite images for management in any which way? How many do you think? Okay. All right, we're moving around a bit, but yeah, this is mostly reflecting what we've seen in other places where we have asked similar questions to this. Great promise, very little everyday use, or at least even infrequent use. So that is something we also need to keep in mind, that the actual numbers of usage are shockingly small. Shockingly. Okay, so this is essentially concludes. Yeah, that's the last question that I have. I'm going to stop sharing. And how many minutes do I have left, Katrine? I think I'm down to one.
3, but
3.
Yeah, go.
Oof, fabulous.
Thanks for bringing in the audience like this. That's been really helpful.
Yeah, I I can talk till I'm blue in the face until what I think, but it's not my land. So I think some of the reasons we ask about these questions is we're trying to find a pathway through in a way that respects each person and place or its agency, but then also brings oversight, history, transparency, and some kind of outcomes basis underneath policy. And we think that in this way, we'll be able to move quicker, I think. And I'm happy to take any questions that anyone has in the structured sessions. So I don't need the whole 3 minutes. Thank you.
Right. Thanks, Ish, and thanks, Tom. Really, really fascinating, very insightful. Let's kick off with the questions we have there. And please, I mean, we've got a lot of people here in the audience. Please add to the Q&A any questions you've got for Ish and Tom. So there's a question, Tom, probably to you from Bill Grayson. To what depth can the assessment of soil carbon be inferred?
One more time, can you repeat that, please, Catherine?
To what depth can the assessment of soil carbon be inferred?
Yeah, soil data cube at the moment up to 200 centimeter, up to 2 meters.
Right. Bill, that answered your question?
0 to 20, 20 to 50, I think 50 to 100, and 100 to 200.
Right. And I think there was a question in the chat, actually, on the reference code. I want to learn this temporal representation of soil carbon data variation. Please share reference code. Operator, if you do that.
We use the Lucas as the reference, so whatever Lucas used. We don't
Right.
manipulate. So, and I think they use the dry combustion for the soil carbon laboratory. It's
Maybe.
it's ISO standard.
Yeah, maybe you can add a link later, actually. That would be useful. Thanks for that. I don't think we've got any other questions at the moment. Do add them. Very quick introduction as well of Josiah. So Josiah, you haven't got a presentation, but we wanted to bring you in. So you work for our team, Farming and Land Use, a solar station charity. You're a soil health advisor. Just quick intro, you're just about to finish your PhD in agroforestry and soil health. So fascinating. So great, thanks for joining us for the discussion. And if you've got any sort of anything to add to what Tom and Ish presented in the context of the project, do come in. And also we've got you here if there are any other questions.
Sure.
But come
Thank
in
you
if
very
you'd
much.
like, with some reflections while I'll look at there are some more questions now. Come in with some reflections.
Sure. I mean, I think the question from Bill about measurement depth is really key. It's a very important sort of underrepresented metric in sort of soil sampling generally, is sort of the depth to which you're considering these sorts of changes. And I think one of the things we were talking about in the with Ishani on the panel we were running last year as well is how. Sorry, not last year, last week, excuse me.
Like
it's sort of, it felt like a year ago. No, it's sort of when you reach, because measurements of sort of soil carbon to different depths can be very uncertain, can vary quite a lot over different sort of lateral scales, and how with these sort of big data tools, when you reach a kind of tipping point of having sufficient data on which the tool is sort of learning, that you can sort of be really precise about those sorts of estimates. So I think that's a very interesting topic of discussion. I'm sure Ish will want to say a bit more. Yeah.
Great, Ish, come in and then we'll come back to, we've got quite a few questions now in the Q&A.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I've just got a message going off. So essentially, how accurate is accurate enough for the question you have is the thing that I would always start with. And I would say in terms of assessing temporal trends, it is more than good enough, but this is to do with the long time frame that is involved, and because most of these things are index-based. And the team put an enormous amount of work into cleaning up and tidying up the remote sensing record to be able to pull out signals with much less noise. If we go to something like organic carbon, which I'm sure everybody is thinking of, so here we look at it in terms of let's say the best estimate that's available, the best prediction that's available. There is uncertainty metrics involved as well. And when we take that at the moment, we incorporate several national data sets that are not publicly available. We have data sharing agreements to access these, and so the model can see them. You can see the output, but you don't see the original survey points or data because we cannot. However, we are getting more and more interest from regional, but then also commercial down to farmer level to incorporate information and data. Also testing labs are also like, yeah, we'll give you this, you just give us some maps we can show our people. And then I'd say if you're really keen on carbon monitoring, direct measurement monitoring, take a few local sample points. And that will be something that will become available in the near future, is just an automated sampling design for your area. And then your next project as well, automated refitting, automated reporting. So you could track your own, let's say. So fit for purpose accuracy, you always need uncertainty if it is a quantifiable metric.
That's a good way to finish that question. Let's go through the questions in the Q&A. The first one just disappears, probably just been. The one now I want to say for the next discussion, the practical applications really. So I think there's another one from Bill. Any ground truthing of the carbon? Josiah would like to answer this question.
Yeah, sure. No, just to say that my role in AI for soil health is leading work package 6, which is a kind of ground truthing exercise of the the whole sort of data infrastructure itself. And as part of that, we have a number of pilot sites across Europe and the UK, where we are working with a number of different stakeholders to sort of ground truth the indicators that are being developed. We're sampling across a number of measures, more traditional measures like organic carbon, pH, available nutrients, but also biological indicators that are being developed as part of the project, such as sort of enzyme measures, eDNA, those sorts of things. And part of that, as you say, is to kind of ground truth the more predictive data, machine learning data that's coming out of the data cube. Again, the question of depth is a big one, and sort of the depth to which those measurements are made is obviously constrained by resources. And we want to make sure it's as comprehensive as possible. So that's sort of part of that stakeholder exercise as well, of how that ground truthing happens and whether it serves the needs of growers, of scientists, of policy. So there is a big part of the project that's focused on that, and that is developing.
Thanks, Josiah. Will be one of the big sort of reflections at the end of the project. We're halfway through, isn't it? Probably one for Tom. How do I manage the 30-meter limitations between the ground that the satellite system present? Can you hear us, Tom?
Tom, you're muted.
Yeah, you might want to answer.
I'm not sure what's the limitation of 30 meter, because you cannot have like, it's difficult to have like a super high resolution at the moment. But I would still say this is the first time we map dynamic soil carbon density in 30 meter. First time, as far as I know. There is now another product coming at 20 meter, but it's not space-time. So as far as I know, this is the finest resolution that you can find as open data. You could go to commercial, data providers. So I'm not sure what is the limitation of 30 meter. I mean, if you have a small farm, if you're like less than 1 hectare or something, right? Then 30 meter is only a few pixels. This thing I agree. But to have a whole Europe, so whole Europe 30 meter, one image, it's I think it's 4 gigabyte, the GeoTIFF. So it is quite large. It's a lot of pixels. I don't know how many pixels now, but I will assume, maybe billion of pixels, a few billion of pixels. So it's a lot of data. There's a question about how could this soil data cube used by National Agriculture Department for planning policy? I was just.
Tom, I was hoping. I was just save that one as well. I think let's save that for the next session, because
I'm trying to answer also I'm typing to answer.
Oh,
but,
cool.
I lost it. I wrote everything and then I lost it. I think somebody clicked the new one.
Let's come back to it. There's another one here, for your-ish, on a trade-off between indicators. I think that would be a good one to say. You might have some thoughts on it as well. That would be a good one to respond live.
Yeah, would you like me to start, or
yeah,
do you want to? Yeah, sure. So I mean, this is a really, I'd say one of the questions we were thinking about before is sort of what are the barriers to wider uptake of these sorts of tools. And I mean, coming up with a sort of unified idea of soil health that sort of works for all stakeholders across all different scales is probably one of the biggest challenges, precisely for the reason that the question presents, that there are trade-offs between indicators. I mean, for example, if you're a grower, you might be interested in sort of building fertility in the top 20 centimeters of soil. Whereas if you're looking at managing sort of national carbon inventories, then you're going to be measuring carbon to much greater depth, and sort of the management processes which produce those two outcomes are going to be quite different. So already in quite a simple you've already got quite a simple trade-off there with quite wide-ranging implications. And this, I mean, this is a sort of continuous discussion in soil science, is what do we mean by soil health, and what does it, and the fact that it means different things to different stakeholders is a considerable challenge to overcome at this sort of scale.
Yeah, thanks, Desire. Just conscious of time, let's go through. If you want to respond to the question on digital twin for farm or landscape,
Yes.
and what it could do as a model for regen farming. It's a big one, isn't it? A nice one.
No, it's great. I put my hand up because it's one of the original reasons I got into digital soil mapping. Essentially, was because I know what regen is. It used to be called different names, but it's now called regen farming. And I know we can measure and monitor it, and I know the kind of indicators to follow, right? So simple things, the energetic input into the soil, right? And you know, you will see that then change in how much light is intercepted, how much how the water behaves in the landscape, how you get quicker greening up and slower browning down, things like this. So these items we can track through time. So do I think, what could we do with the model for regenerative farming? Well, we could change the whole industry. I don't know any farmer that would knowingly degrade their land. And I think a lot of the modern systems, the responsibility for that lies on the feet of scientists. They invented them. We invented them, my predecessors. So I feel responsible to do something. So I think we could do a lot. That's it. I think we can revolutionize. That's my short answer.
Thanks, Ish. Tom, do you want to come in on this, or are you happy with that? Otherwise, we'll move on, really. Just your
I
time,
have
maybe
one
you
point.
can just, sorry.
One point I
Okay.
wanted to say, I see this conflict. It's a very interesting, like the privacy laws and private data, which I respect, of course, and I see actually Silicon Valley is like playing with that a lot, taking out data through all these social networks and channels. So I feel bad about it. On the other hand, you have the interest of the public. So there's a question about heavy metals. If you map the heavy metals and pollution by heavy metals, then many people will be upset that on the land, because it could lead to loss in the value of land. And loss in the value of land, it's really big money, and people could get really upset. There could be low cases. On the other hand, you have an interest of the public. And the interest of public is to know, to see what is happening, because this is a common land. Actually, many people don't know. Even when you own the farm, you actually own only the first, I think, 30 centimeter or something, or something like that. So rest of the land is actually a public. It's a common good. And in interest of people is to know, how big is the pollution? Is it dangerous, if my child plays on some field, if somebody grows food on some field which is potentially heavy metals. So actually the interest of public in this case, to me, it's more important than the privacy. And we will have more and more of this conflict. I think it's coming, and it is a real conflict, and we need to question that. It's really moral dilemma. It is really, in essence, it's not a science dilemma, it's not a technology problem. It's a moral dilemma. Is it the interest of public, or is it the interest of individual landowner? And don't forget, many land in the world, it's owned by actually a few wealthy people, especially in Latin America, or even in US. You have a few corporations, they own a lot of agricultural land. So the question is it more important that we know how much pollution they emit, and what do they do with the land that we all know, or is it their privacy? And how does this affect the privacy if we know that some land is polluted? It affects their, let's say, bank account. I mean, it affects their pocket. But how does it affect their privacy? I still don't understand that. I mean, I don't think there's a privacy issue. I think it's just it's a moral dilemma, really.
Thanks, Tom. Ryan, if you've answered questions, maybe just also get a quick sort of summary so people keep up. I think there was something on lab methods and sort of different.
Yeah, sure. So
so maybe just to make sure everybody can hear the answers as well.
That's fine, and I'm happy to answer questions
I think
live.
you've answered another one. Maybe just go through that as well briefly.
Yeah, no, the question was about whether, obviously, with data coming in across Europe, how do we harmonize lab methods? And the answer is that one of the deliverables of the project is to create precisely that, a harmonized suite of indicators and methodology for measuring them. And between pilot sites, as that methodology develops in the document which will kind of describe it, we're in constant discussion about how to do that, and we maintain sort of cross-work package interaction about maintaining that consistency. So it's a good question. It's a very important point.
There are a couple of questions on soil organic matter. Predictions, yeah, and around the uncertainty point. Who would like to sort of respond to that?
I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, so again, a statistically significant change in an area needs to be also bounded with what is a reasonable sequestration rate and how long can a business wait till it gets confirmation of performance of change through time. Because soil organic carbon will always, it's a lagging indicator. It always follows many other indicators, right? They have to all be going up and improving, and then the soil carbon will trot along the end, right? I think that as long as we are trying the tradable difference in as long as we tie any generation of credits to essentially the uncertainty of the difference through time, then it doesn't matter what the uncertainty per se is. It just gets expressed in terms of how long you have to wait and how big an amount of a change you have to do to be able to detect a difference, to be able to claim a difference through time. This is the kind of setup in the Australian direct measurement system, and we will be bringing the system to Europe as well and implementing it here. So how do you reduce prediction uncertainty? Generally, yeah, there are three main pathways, and we have a short amount of time. One is more samples, the other is understand the heterogeneity of your landscape, and another one is don't waste your sampling, right? Don't take unnecessary samples, but also they are your primary information. Don't cut them too much. Cut the cost of everything else. People like us, field people, advisors, blah, blah, blah. Primary lab data is information. It's not replaceable. So yeah, I don't directly answer it, but I hope you understand what I'm saying.
Great. I think we sort of, let me just see if there's anything else. Otherwise, I'm just sort of raise our practical questions.
There's a question by Gabor. The uncertainty associated with soil prediction is often enormous, making it difficult to identify statistically significant changes in SOC. Do you have any ideas of how to reduce prediction uncertainty? So usual strategies we use is going to finer resolution, moving from 30 meter to 10 meter, adding more covariate data, which is more that helps explain soil processes. And then also adding high quality training point data, which is less noisy, so less harmonization, etc. Eventually, we cannot do magic, it's and we don't want to cheat. The uncertainty is real. Mapping soils is complex. It is not like mapping above ground biomass, where you have directly basically images of vegetation and height of the vegetation, etc. So we will always have this part of uncertainty that we cannot easily explain. And then in that case, what you could do with the soil health data cube, you could, for example, take a local farm and then do a local sampling, because we have now like Lucas is, I think, 1 point in, 4 square kilometers or something, or even a lesser intensity. But you could come with a locally on a farm, and you could collect, for example, 100 times higher density of points. So you collect maybe like 4 points per hectare or something. And then you could build the local models. And this could maybe help then improve the uncertainty, decrease the uncertainty, sorry. But that will be just locally, that will be per farm. And that will cost, of course, because you have to spend resources to do that sampling, and that's quite expensive. And hopefully the technology, I heard now there was a post about how the soil measurement in the field and all these companies building these soil spectroscopy devices. And so it's really competitive now. So that's really happening, very good. And I'm very happy these companies are competing with each other. And we, when many companies compete with each other, the winners are the public, the clients, the people that will use it, because eventually they will come with some breakthrough and they will say, now you can do very cheaply, you can cheaply connect a lot of data. And as we collect more data, we are able to collect very quickly and more data on the ground. We will be able to decrease that uncertainty, I think, at least locally.
Thanks, Tom. We've just had a last question coming in, but if
A
you're
lot of questions, it's very good. I'm very happy.
yeah,
But
great
I'm
questions.
trying to answer,
I know.
I don't know which is better, to textually answer or to just answer directly.
What I suggest is actually that we move on, because we've had sort of 20 minutes just of our questions on the presentations, and they were really, really good questions. So if there are any questions that we haven't responded to yet, we can still respond to them in writing afterwards as well. I'd love to move on really to sort of the second 20 minutes of sort of Q&A, but it's a slightly sort of bigger picture really, and that's why we're sort of parking a couple of these questions. This is all about how to apply the data cube, where the potential is, what it takes. And Maddie, I was thinking that we should just do the Menti quickly, go back to the Menti really, because now you've heard what Tom and Ish said. How would you use the sort of soil health data cube? That's really the question we would love to ask you before we move into discussion. And as you were so active earlier, we hope you'll join in with this one as well. Let's just give this a minute or two. Yeah, keep them coming. It's interesting choice. Maddie, will you just go back to showing us, because basically events are quite different things coming through, just our curiosity, seeing what's going on there. Quite a few sort of from farmers here, or actually land managers looking at their own land, wanting to understand the sort of baseline really, and wanting to demonstrate the impact from interventions, which is exactly what it's designed for. Some research related ones, river catchment analysis, insurance connection there earlier, supporting farmers practice, really good, really helpful. Yeah, keep them coming really, and maybe just sort of kicking off to all three here on the panel, Tom and Isha and Josiah. Where do you see the sort of biggest potential really, and if we can sort of cover policy, farmers, sort of planners, research, it would be really useful, and then we'll come back sort of to some of the questions in the Q&A earlier. Isha, I'll kick off with you, really sort of big pictures. How do you want to see the data cube used, and preferably sort of against these different groups?
Oh, I personally
it's a big question.
All right, how do I personally want to see it used? Yeah. I personally would like to see it used to support people in their places, whether they are a farmer, a local group, or a local government. Use the information to support what they've already done, right? There's a lot of really good actors that have done amazing things, and often, in Western modernity, it's like, oh, if you don't have data or you don't have a graph, like, oh, nice story, right? So I'd really like to see that. I want to see if it aligns with the success stories already in the record. And if that's the case, then I want to see people using it to monitor their own progress that they decide themselves what to do, and they use it as a record and a proof and a confirmation of performance, a guide, a directional guide, something like this.
Yeah. What about side policy level?
I'm an outcomes girl, so
Okay, good.
I would like to see
Oh,
reward for outcome, and then probably some I don't know how you do it in this because it's more in the biological diversity space, but some measure of the quality of the service, especially when it comes to biodiversity or something like that. Just because it's a small area doesn't mean that it's therefore a small contribution. Something, I'm not sure how we get at this, but there in a policy area, sensitivity to this.
thanks, Ish. Tom, I mean, quite a few sort of comments here in terms of use for research. Do you want to sort of reflect on that? Really, how the data cube can really sort of support?
Yeah. Personally, for me, what my hope is that the soil health data cube will be used primarily is for the detecting where's the land degradation happening, because it's really hidden, and it takes a lot of work, to prepare all this data and see these trends, and obviously when you have a negative trends in losing primary productivity, soil carbon, pH changing drastically, so that's something really happening, and it's very important. And you see, when I show you on this map, we were also very surprised. They can be a farm next to each other. So one farm is like losing the primary productivity, the other next neighboring, 20 meter, it's gaining soil carbon, etc. So my hope is first that people will become aware that there's land degradation happening. It's not just some phrase, it is really happening. There are negative trends, and people should be aware of it, and they should be aware that they're very local, because we manage land now very locally. We don't manage land at national level very systematically. That's one thing. And then I had a podcast, and I also said, so that's kind of a bit negative aspect, but the positive aspect is that many people do land restoration, and they're very good managers of the land, and I call them champions of land, or lighthouses. And what will be very nice to see, which are these people. And now we are slowly starting to see there are places where there is a really increase in soil carbon, decrease in the tillage intensity over the 25 years, decrease in the bare surface soil coverage. And so these are all positive. To me, these are really champions of the land. They're really restoring the land, and we should find these people, and we should celebrate them, and we should ask them, how do you do it? And if they come, for example, these big meetings where all the farmers come, if you bring these people and say, how did you do this? We see that you're really changing your land, and it's really positive. Tell us, how did you, if they're willing to share, and I bet you 99% of them, they will be proud of it, and they will be happy to share, and then to connect these people, to make them champions of the land, and to connect them with all the farmers in Europe and UK, and to say, look at these people. These are models. These are lighthouses, and we should listen to them, because looks like they know what they're doing.
Thanks, Tom. Just really want to sort of reflect on really the sort of potential for the data cube, maybe particularly on the sort of policy side as well, but also on the sort of research side.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think from a lot of the discussion that's come up, and sort of my understanding of the technology where it is, I mean, I think it's a question of scale, really. And in terms of understanding risks, understanding sort of policy priorities, as Tom said, we can do an enormous amount with this sort of technology in terms of identifying, for example, areas of degradation, particular sort of regional trends in terms of, or even more local trends for sort of specific soil needs. I think where we're not, and where we probably won't be, is sort of, for example, in this sort of pixel, soil carbon's gone down, so we're going to sort of apply some sort of penalty or reward for another pixel, because that it's just very invasive, and we just haven't got the ground truthing we really feel, I mean, Ish and Tom might disagree, but I feel like we're quite a long way off from that, even at a sampling level, let alone a kind of remote sensing level. I think, having worked in indexes before, I think what they do is they basically, instead of, particularly at small scale, instead of giving you a replication of the truth, they guide you to the right questions. They guide you to the avenues of your own research. So say you're trying to work out what's going on in your small area, in your land, you can use this technology to give you an idea of what might be going on, and then go and investigate those questions in detail yourself. And it's sort of, instead of being presented with all possible options, it helps you to narrow your focus in terms of what your soil needs and your business might need, and go from there. So I think you have to think about scale in terms of how this gets applied.
Thanks, Josiah. I think there was a question in earlier on from the sort of national authority, I assume, for sort of land use planning, really. How useful can it be for land use planning? I mean, I guess that's at a national level, but also at a European level. And it would be really good to sort of come back to that question. How useful can the data cube be for those purposes? Or what's the difference? What are you offering really? Sort of what are we offering through the data cube that maybe wasn't possible before?
Sorry, to whom are you addressing the question,
Yeah,
Catherine?
yeah.
Me? Oh,
Well, it
sorry.
doesn't matter. Whoever would like to. Actually, I think
typing.
Lynn's probably
I
best
can
to.
say I can say maybe that
Yeah.
it's technical. It's more technical. So while we are now in this situation that, for example, Lucas, when it started, people started making static maps of soil properties. It was a really fantastic initiative, Lucas. And I know many continents, especially I have colleagues at US. They are jealous about Lucas. They wanted something like that for US. So we started making these static maps, and there were, I don't know, tens of publications. Now we have like a 3 repetition. Now it's the 4th repetition. When you have a 4th repetition, then you start seeing slowly the trends. With 2 repetitions, you see differences, but you don't know whether that's by some oscillation. So is it really change? When you have a 4 repetitions, you start seeing more clearly these trends. And we also have a Lancet. Lancet is already 50 years old, but now this data set we use, it's been really harmonized, and we have it from 1997 to today. And now we can do, for example, almost up to 30 years. Soon it will be 30 years that we can see what. So I call it also like a soil forensics, because you can go back, and it's not just like you come to some farm and say, what are you doing on your farm? What's happening? But you really can go and say, hey, you bought this farm 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and now we can look what happened 30 years ago and what the previous owner did, So we are starting to build this history of the land at a resolution of 30 meters, which is okay. It's not a 1 meter resolution or something, but still it's amazing resolution that you can basically reconstruct the past of a farm, and you can see in which year really things went, let's say, bad. And that's I think that's something new. This is and this is really this new dimension to be able to see the strengths. And I started when I was doing my PhD in 2003. I finished. I mean, I fantasize about using high resolution and doing dynamic modeling, but at that time you couldn't. You were happy to have one satellite image. In 2003, I had to actually pay a satellite image. I bought a Lancet. I paid like $1,500. And I bought a one Lancet image, and I was so happy. I have my own Lancet image. And now we are 20 years later, we have a copy of the whole Lancet. It's a 1.4 petabyte. So we have a whole copy in our system, and we're doing all this modeling, and we're seeing so many things. It's a really a golden mine of data. And the Sentinel is the same, Copernicus Sentinel. It's really golden mine. We really heavily underuse this data. There's so much useful information there, and we should plug this information as soon as possible into policy making decisions, management, and also financially we should plug it in, and we should use it to estimate per pixel how much we are losing in potential profits, in potential gains, how much we're losing by losing soil health ecosystem functions, you know. And so we should do it as soon as possible. There's so much work still, by the way. Even though you know, people go, oh, you guys, you made this soil health data cube, so the job's done, right? We have it now. It's a tip of an iceberg, and there's so much work still to get 9 million farmers across EU, and I don't know how many in UK. How many farmers you have in UK? Probably, I don't know, maybe 500,000 or something, between 500,000 or. So there's still a lot of work to move. You see, people voted on this Mentimeter, or was it Mentimeter Slido? Most of people, they understand it. It's very correct. Less than 1% of farmers use any Earth observation data. Use actively. I mean, maybe they're aware of it. They open Google Maps or something. They look at satellite images, but that's not using Earth observation data for managing land. So we are tip of the iceberg. You know, we need to exponentially increase that. Not that we have now 1% and in 5 years we'll have 2%. No, we have to move from 1% to like 90%. And time is now, really. So, I think technology is going to help us. We also think that AI technology is going to help make the data more digestible, because it will be on your phone, you know, and it will be available to, you know, millions of people at the same time to ask questions and to use it. And we want that this data reaches basically all the farmers, and then they become aware, and then they will themselves, you know, a good farmer will very quickly see, okay, this data, I could use this, I could potentially change some management practice, I could also look for these carbon credits, I could maybe profit out of it a bit. I could look what happened last 30 years, and I remember what happened. If, let's say, farmers, they do remember what they do, even you know, going back long time, and then they could see, okay, I did this, and I see that there was some negative effects of that, so I need to stop with that. And so that's the goal.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And just on a reflection of, you know, 20 years ago and how much progress we've made. I mean, where do you see the sort of data cube in 10 years' time?
Oh, I feel
some
like
wild predictions here from all three of you.
Yeah, I'll just start very quickly. The Earth observation data, it's exponentially going up. There will be more and more data. We talk about it. I have another project which is just about Earth observation data. So we have this thing that exponentially more and more data. On the other side, our capacity to process it, you know, it's going like this. So there's a more and more this gap. We cannot process this data. We cannot digest it. So we are doomed to use AI technology and to use some kind of system that allows us to access this data in more simple terms without need to open everything, process everything. So we are doomed actually to use AI technology. And let's say I see AI technology, it is penetrating, it is good chance that actually AI technology going to reach all the farmers by 2030. I think it's a good possibility because it's all around AI technology. It's many are offered for free, so you don't have to pay. Of course, the Silicon Valley companies will start charging eventually. But it will reach many people, and we just have to look positively at that and see a potential, because this is also a common interest. So I think it will become within 5 years. It will become probably very difficult to hide that you are not a good manager of the land. That's my estimate. It will be very difficult because this data is open, everybody can access, everybody can view, and it will become more and more hard to hide that you're not a good land manager. And it will be kind of, how to put it, it's everybody will be exposed. And it's a bit uncomfortable, right? Because satellite images expose what you do. We are now Planet has a 1 meter resolution. We have this 30 centimeter images. S3 way back has 30 centimeter last 12 years or last 15 years. So you can see the individual trees disappearing, you know, and people building something in the garden or putting a So it's very difficult to hide today. So I think we are getting more and more exposed. Everybody's naked, more or less, and it will be more difficult to hide that you don't manage your land properly. So we should all turn mindset and start thinking, okay, time is now that I want to become a champion of land management. So I own the land. I don't want to miss the chance. So the question is now, how do I better manage my land? How? And there is knowledge. There is, UK Solar Association. There's organizations that will come and say, you want to change, you want to transition. This is what you do. This is what you should read. This is what you should consider changing. And there are multiple options. There's not a single, for every pixel in the world, we don't have a single solution what is optimum, We don't have it. But so there may be multiple solutions, and maybe farmer has to choose. But we can tell them, this is the way you can better manage your land. And this is how much it costs, and this is how you should transition. And that, I think that's the mindset that people should change. They should start thinking, I should start this transition as soon as possible.
Absolutely, Tom. Ish, just on the vision, 10 years time.
Oof. So, well, I think that the system, like, it's great. We've gotten to this point. Things are visible, but now what are we going to do with it? And I'm excited about incorporating more and more point data from the grounds. So it becomes, instead of like, this is the truth and you have to just follow it, it becomes actually more like a public service. Yeah, so you can look up the weather on your phone. There's sensors everywhere. There are models that are run in collaboration of multiple countries working together to serve information. I would like to see soil and environment go that way, rather than to try and specify what the solution is, because I think, like I said, I've never met a farmer that knowingly degrades their land. And I do think that the majority of them are sensible business people, and if they see advantage, if they see, you have much better production in the longer term. And even if we're talking about lower interest rates or a discount on your interest for your debt, if we're talking about lower insurance premiums, things like this, or, being able to substantiate claims for quality or something or other, future labels, I'm happy with all of that. I think it's every shovel counts, and that's what I'd like to see. Lots more shovels. I'm not anti-digging. So more shovels, other people's feet on shovels, because our role is just is only infrastructural. I think that's something we need to keep in mind, that for us we need to set a level playing field, set some safety limits on, okay, people's private information, some sensitive, like, set this, and then let's see what everyone makes together. That's more exciting. That's my vision, that it grows its own legs and it gets usage and people self-determine what to do. Because I can't imagine all the solutions, but all of us together, we're going to find some really great stuff, I think. So that's for me. More data, please, though, just personal.
Excellent. Josiah, I'll let you come in on the vision as well, and I'll try and summarize some of it and conclude this really fascinating webinar.
Ishani, you want to start, or?
No, Josiah's just coming in on his own vision as well.
Sorry.
Okay.
Just
Yeah,
10 years time.
Yeah, I think for me, it's one of the best things about this tool is it gets soil as part of the national conversation. We've been talking a lot about how these tools can be deployed, everything being very open, and sort of making it part of the agenda. Starting to measure value in ways that we aren't used to, namely money. But I think that it's kind of a very old unsolved problem. Soil has to be part of that solution. I think there are a lot of things. There are a lot of kind of challenges we've got to overcome. I think kind of in terms of stakeholder priorities, in terms of ethics, in terms of data, all of these things that have come up are very real concerns. I'm not saying there aren't answers, but they're very non-trivial. For example, there are plenty of reasons why people might not be able to manage land well that we don't necessarily account for, such as, for example, they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the physical means, there's all these sorts of reasons that need to be incorporated in sort of coming up with a kind of diverse product, if I can use that term, with diverse use. And so I suppose I'm probably slightly more tempered in terms of my kind of tenure assessment. I see quite a lot of very important questions to be asked in that space, particularly around sort of issues like have, you know, open visibility on what you're doing in your land and that sort of thing. I'd probably take a slightly more cautious view of what's ahead there, but I'm very excited for a tool that for the value of the tool.
Thanks, Josiah. And thanks, Maddie, for reminding me that we were going to do just check how people's understanding has changed. So when we started this session an hour and a half ago, most people were still on a sort of very limited understanding of the data cube. Let's see how this is changing. I think anybody who's sort of still on a sort of limited some understanding, you know, do just let us know what else you'd like to know, really, to sort of help explain the data cube better. Excellent. Okay, well, it's really, really good to see we've moved quite a lot to sort of a much better, very good understanding. I want to thank the three speakers, because it has been a really fascinating conversation, probably one we could have carried on for much longer. And, you know, I think I just want to pick up on one or two points. And your point is a really interesting one, isn't it? This point about this, you know, we've created infrastructure. It's really up to everyone, you know, in this room, you know, the people here on the webinar, the people who will be listening, the people who are working with us in this project, to actually use this tool to its full potential. I think that is a really, really good reminder. And I think, so Tom's point, you know, the sort of visibility, we can't hide poor management anymore, whether that's at individual level, at national level, or at a European level, and a huge potential, you know, it has for both policy interventions, but also for individual land managers to actually monitor and sort of show the impact, and for land managers to actually even see their own impact of their own interventions. Lots to reflect on, really, much food for thought. But I'll leave it here. Just a quick reminder for everyone. We will be uploading a recording. You know, if you've got further questions, please contact us, you know, whether it's on LinkedIn or contact us directly. Really keen to sort of respond to further questions. Really keen also to understand feedback, really, what we could do better, different, what other subjects you'd love to hear about. And just a really big thank you, actually, to all of you for being so proactive and joining us with the conversation. There is another session coming up, exactly. Thank you, Maddie. On the 25th of July, a really, really fascinating conversation as well. You can see the speakers there, really making a case for soil health monitoring. This should be really promising, and there's another further 2 webinars in this series, so we're really keen to have your feedback. Huge thank you to our speakers, a huge thank you to the audience, and of course, big thank you to our funders. You know, this is a massively ambitious project, 28 partners across Europe, you know, pilot sites in 11 countries. It's huge. And this wouldn't be possible without the support of the EU or in the UK, support of UKRI. So thank you, everybody, for having the vision and the courage to support this kind of program, and particularly Ish and Tom for sort of driving the project in a way that you've done. Your energy and experience is fabulous, and it's an absolute joy to be working with the 2 of you, and obviously the other 27 partners as well, not 26. Great. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Really, really great session.
There's more
see you
to come.
for
We still
the
have
next
2
one.
more years
Sorry?
of this. There's more to come. We still have 2 more years. So
yeah, exactly. So we'll have another session, another 6 or 12 months to review. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Katrin.
Bye,
Thanks,
bye.
everyone. Bye.
Have a great day. Thank you. Bye.